For me, it's magic. You can take people from the static shores of the status quo to really a new worldview.
I think we make people feel attacked.
We really have to rethink our narrative.
Can I ask for your advice then?
Stefaan Vandist is a one-man army, an author of 3 books, and a master storyteller who helps organizations change the world by changing their narratives.
We all believe the idea and the myth that a better world, it starts within the barriers of our own life. That's not true at all.
Let's dive in. Stefaan, welcome. Super happy to see you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Stefaan, you are the master storyteller. I always look up to you, especially also storytelling when it comes to sustainability, because I think we have to get it right and we are not yet. Why is storytelling in sustainability and in general so important?
I think it is important because storytelling for me, it's magic. It's a superpower that provides you with magic. And maybe now I'm overselling it, but if you think of it, with storytelling, you can really take people from the world of A to the world of B. You can take people from the static shores of the status quo to really a new worldview. That's the power of storytelling. You can educate them, you can engage them, motivate them to embrace a new world. And that's why it is so important.
I love how you put it, because I think I felt it on my own skin. When I got into sustainability and climate and I was working at MasterCard, first I went with straight facts, We have to act, things are so bad. I was just out of university with a degree in all the climate grads and all the science behind. So that's what I did. I went and said to my colleagues and my executives, we need to act, we need to do something. And my message wasn't getting across. They weren't getting on board. So one by one I said, okay, I need to change something, the way I do things. And once we had a call, which I was allowed to lead, and I started incorporating the moments of storytelling. And I started saying stories that really inspire me, like a story of Greenland and Louis Pugh swimming there in his Speedos, stories of different technologies that are popping up in sustainability, stories of what's happening in the company. And after that call, people started coming to me and they said, whatever you want me to do now, tell me and I will do it.
Okay.
And it was such a powerful shift for me. That's when I really believed in the power of storytelling.
Interesting that you talk about taking people in an imaginative way to Greenland. In storytelling, we call it crossing the threshold. We can address this very powerful technique later. Yeah. But first about why storytelling often doesn't work when it comes to sustainability, because we really have to be aware of it. And I guess at this very moment, at the moment we are recording this podcast, is the 12th of February 2025. If we look back at last year, 2024 was the year of a celebration of democracy, in the sense that more than 4 billion people all over the globe went voting, from the US to the European Union, South Africa, Brazil. So many people went voting, and the raw thing or the inconvenient truth was that everyone who sold a narrative that was positive and progressive in terms of addressing climate change or biodiversity loss, they were all punished in the voting booth, let's say.
Why?
So yeah, that's a very so we really have to rethink our narrative, the big narrative on climate change, on biodiversity, on an attractive and unifying future. We really have to do it in a different way. A first thing that I think is very important is that our narrative has as foundations facts, numbers, and statistics. These are the foundations of our story when it comes to climate and ecology and biodiversity, and that's wrong. Yeah, the facts don't lie. Facts don't work. Yeah, human behavior and behavioral change is driven by emotion and social norms. We are social animals, so we are influenced by what the group is doing to a much larger extent than the numbers and statistics. Now, the reason why our communication on sustainability is driven by numbers and statistics is because in sustainability, we are obsessed with numbers. We are obsessed with facts. Yeah, it's a number game, and we need it for our reporting. And what we do in most all of the organizations, then we're going to take the reports and turn it into a campaign. And then you have a campaign that is driven by numbers and statistics. Well, people are not motivated by numbers and statistics. We know we are social animals. So we have to rethink the numbers. And of course, if you think of it, most of nonprofits, most of people in sustainability, they have a scientific background. They are legal experts. They had their degrees in economics. And most of the time, those people, they don't like marketing. They think marketing is manipulation. You have to have your numbers right. You have to feed people with and educate them with rational arguments. But that's not the case. People think people's behavior doesn't change because they are not well informed. Well, they are informed. They are informed. They know what the story is about, but knowing the story is not equal, it's not going to change your behavior. So we really have to rethink our story. Things that might work is, first of all, having the narrative right. Go back to the foundations of storytelling, and then it's better to look at what Pixar animation studio is doing or Walt Disney is doing rather than reading marketing books. Yeah.
So how would you
go back? Yeah,
with that?
we have to go back to the fundamentals and to rethink what is the core idea of our story. When you go to pitch shows where startups are pitching to have funds from investors, and you ask them what is the core idea of your pitch, I often find out that people don't know, never ask themselves. We have to think of who's the villain and who's the hero in our story. And even more important, how can the audience find their own role in our story? Yeah? These are fundamental questions you have to ask yourself. What is in Dutch we would say handelingsperspectief. Yeah? Call for action, it's too narrow. Handelingsperspectief, it's broader than that. So how can people in the audience, among consumers, among citizens, find their own role within your story? And what is your universal theme in your story? Imagine the startup who comes up with an artificial intelligence to optimize the recycling patterns to recycle batteries. That's a very technical story.
Yeah.
It's a niche within a niche within a niche. But however the technological niche and however the importance of his breakthrough, he has to tap into a universal theme. And a universal theme might be the courage to go on and never give up. Yeah? Being obsessed by a big challenge, falling in love with a big challenge in society. These are universal themes.
Okay.
That's what young people in China can understand, or people can understand in the West. It's universal. And that helps the audience to care. You have to make them care. And if you don't tap into a universal theme, it is very hard to feel empathy for what you are doing. So these are fundamentals of storytelling. If you look at old school advertising techniques, they're all there. All the techniques are available, but for some weird reason, people in sustainability, they don't like advertising, they don't like marketing, while all the tools and techniques to really change people's behavior is there. And of course, in the past decades, we used them to sell holidays or breakfast cereals or to sell, I don't know, soft drinks. But I think we have to rediscover the toolbox to create new narratives that really touch people deeply and that touch people emotionally.
Can I ask for your advice then? Let's dive in. I love that concept of a hero and a villain and a universal theme that everyone can relate to. Let's take a practical example of what we do at Earth Plus, right? Regenerating the land with nature-based solutions like plants and then making carbon-negative construction materials. How would you recommend, which universal topic would you recommend? And how would you look into a hero, a villain here, and the place of the audience?
Okay, so that's really to make a new puzzle for the story. I think a very powerful technique, which is as old as humanity themselves. As long as we tell stories, I think people make use of the technique of crossing the threshold. And I think it was Joseph Campbell who dedicated his entire life to study the fundamentals of storytelling all over the globe, all over different cultures in the world. And he says in every story, the hero goes from the day-to-day ordinary worlds, dives into the magic world where he fights villains and there is a conflict and there is a big adventure like Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or any story applies to this fundamental principle. And then he comes back from the magical world to the ordinary world with new insights, with a transformation, a personal transformation, but maybe also a transformation for the world. If you look at Netflix documentaries of the past decades, they did this very, very, very well. Think about Kiss the Ground. Think about My Big Little Farm. Think about My Octopus Teacher. Think about Kiss the Ground, Octopus Teacher. There are so many of them. They take you from the ordinary worlds where ecology and our where ecology is in threat or is harmed, and they take you to the magical worlds, fantastic fungi. Wow, there is a totally different universe out there. Kiss the ground. Wow, our soil is alive. We're not aware of it. But in these documentaries, there is magic happening, and you discover new things. You deepen your experience of the world. You go through reality distortion fields during the documentary, and you come out of the documentary with new insights. Even better, you're not only coming out of the documentary with new insights, you found the ways to share these new insights with other people. A good story doesn't supply a story. A good story does story supplying. It makes sure that you are able and are enabled to share this story with others. When it comes to the other pieces of the puzzle, I think the villain, a lot of people choose their villain like, okay, our villain is climate change, or our villain is biodiversity loss, or it's big corporations, something like that. But the more original you choose your conflicts, the more interesting your story will be. Let's give you an example. There is this very successful NGO, Just Dig It. And they have this very easy idea that, look, there is so much, there are millions of acres of soil in the world, especially on the African continent, that is completely dead. It's a desert. But if only we dig holes, then the little bit of fresh water that comes with the rain, it will stay there and it will jumpstart new nature. And it will not apply everywhere, but there are millions of acres on the planet where this will work. And we will teach farmers how to do it. Just dig it. Well, when they advertise Just Dig It, they're not talking about climate change. They don't choose climate change as their villain. What they do is choosing the COP conventions on climate change as the villain. That feels weird. That feels special. Their advertising says, while you are having your meetings, we are digging. So they make this very, very interesting contrast between people who are saving the world from the meeting room while flying all over the planet to have their meetings and to have their dinners and so on, while they have their boots on the ground and they are digging. And you can measure the results with square kilometers. That's a very interesting conflict from a narrative perspective.
Yes. What kind of villain would you recommend us choosing? Would it be forever chemicals in soils? Would it be linear waste and emissions in construction. What kind of an interesting villain could we choose in our case?
I like the stories that choose ignorance or the unknown, the fact that we don't know that our soil is so polluted. And as a hero, yeah, you can choose microorganisms, but I think you make your story more human if you choose the people who make use of the best of science and technology to actually make a difference. Yeah. That's also a kind of misconception. You and I, we like microorganisms and fungi and all these little micro factories that can do brilliant things. Yeah. But most people have a very childish idea of nature. Their idea of what nature really is comes from Walt Disney. Yeah, nature, it's a holiday destination, or there is big nature with flamingos and polar bears and animals that are cute, while the true operating system of nature, it's microorganisms, right? But the bad thing is, people can empathize and feel empathy and feel an emotional connection with humans, maybe polar bears, maybe tigers, but it's very hard to empathize with microorganisms. That's just a human fact. That's the reason why Disney makes every character look like a baby, yeah? So that you can really have an emotional bond with it. So I think there is a very powerful technique that we call anthropomorphism, and it's the very simple idea of attributing human characteristics to non-human life or even to technology. There is a beautiful example. I have to go back to 2009. It was the opening of Conscious Hotel in the Netherlands. And it was the time that every hotel chain wanted to have the green key label, because the green key label represents that you are a sustainable hotel. But Conscious Hotel did something different. They wanted to diversify and differentiate themselves in terms of sustainability, but they didn't do it with the green key. They had their heat pump and they had their special insulation and their biological eggs at the breakfast table. Every visitor got his own bike in Conscious Hotel in Amsterdam. But every touch point in the hotel got a text bulb, text balloon with a little text. And every time you read it, it feels like the hotel is flirting with you. Yeah? The hotel is falling in love with me. You have this text bulb in the shower that says, hey, I would like to soap your body one more time because I love it. Yeah? So it feels a bit weird and awkward maybe in the beginning, but every text bulbs gets the message across of something they did in terms of sustainability.
Okay.
And then the magic happens. If you read one or two text bulbs, you want to read them all. Yeah. And there are 150 of them all around the hotel. Okay. So the hotel consciously decided to go for a storytelling strategy, to go for entertainment and to please people's brain and have like 150 messages across about the heat pump, about the insulation, about the plastic, about everything in the hotel, every choice they made. But they addressed the human mind, and our minds wants to be entertained. We want to be flattered. We want to have a sense of positive feelings. We're on holiday when we're in a hotel.
Yeah. Okay, so would we... I love that. I absolutely now want to go and read all of them too. In the case, okay, we take plants and fungi. So that means that we can take and make them more human. We can make like animations of plants with faces and talking and flirting to us, or how would you apply this technique, for example, on soil regeneration?
Another strategy of anthropomorphism. We have seen at Love Tomorrow, Milan Meijberg, who came up with this talkative AI, where you can actually talk with nature. Yeah. It's also a very actual, contemporary example of anthropomorphism. You can talk to nature, you can ask nature questions about her health, about the heat wave that has been happening, about its biodiversity, about its soil, and so on. what if you can talk to soil? What if you can talk to your test infrastructure to test the results of hemp and microorganisms and the application of it?
I love it.
Another way is to turn the people who are really who are the pioneers and who are dedicating their life to make breakthroughs, to turn them into the heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have a face and they become the real and true celebrities. Yeah. And this way you can use storytelling not to make important what is interesting, but to make interesting what is important. For me, that's the fundamental role in sustainability of storytelling. Making interesting what is important instead of making important what is interesting. And so you can really make use of storytelling to glorify the pioneers who are working on soil depletion, or to clean up the polluted soils. That could be a third way of making it more human.
Yeah. I like it that you went into the hero concept. A fact that I learned last year about storytelling and positioning and sustainability is that as startups, we often think that the heroes should be us because we are solving the problem. But actually, we need to think more of our customers being the heroes rather than us, so they can position themselves more within our story, right?
Yeah, true.
And for me, that was such a discovery to think in a different way when we present something, because it's true. To get people on board, we need them to be flattered. We need them to be thinking that they're solving global issues, which they are by partnering up with sustainable startups.
Yeah, I agree. Turning your customer as the hero who has the courage to make this decision and to be in the front line, we can learn a lot of it. I know it's a campaign and it's different, but do you remember the Ice Bucket Challenge? The Ice Bucket Challenge.
Yeah, I think when people were pouring a bucket with water and ice blocks on themselves or something. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. So there was ALS. It's a horrible disease, but this disease was not very well known among the general public, and it was the most successful campaign in terms of fundraising and awareness when it comes to ALS. And the mechanism of the campaign was very simple. You make a video of yourself throwing an ice bucket over your head, and you nominate one of your friends to do the same. Yeah, I don't remember the numbers, but millions of people did it. Millions of people have seen it. A lot of people have been so generous to support the campaign, also in financial terms. The thing that we can learn from this is, okay, the call for action, the way I can join your story and be part of your stories, it's adventurous. There is a sense of adventure. So you have to make sustainability easy, attractive, or adventurous. Yeah? And maybe this adventurous thing, we're not aware that it is very powerful. We are already aware that we have to make sustainability easy. IKEA has done this, many others. We have to make it attractive. Yeah, we have to seduce people rather than moralize people. But turning it into an adventure, it's something else, and it can also be powerful.
Oh, I love that. What are some of the super cool examples that you've seen in sustainability space and in the stories that are being told?
That's a good question. Maybe I'm gonna address them by storytelling technique, right? Because we're talking about techniques.
Perfect.
You have Oatly milk. It's a plant-based milk. And what they do in a very clever way is confuse and conquering. That's what we call confuse and conquering.
Okay.
They have advertising campaigns that say, it's like milk, but for humans. Okay, what happens in your brain? It's like milk, but for humans. So it disturbs your worldview,
Yeah.
right? It disturbs people's worldview. People go in their head like, wait a minute, it's like milk, but for humans. Milk, it's for humans. Oh no, wait, milk, it's for little cows.
Yeah.
So it disturbs and it shakes your worldview. And the
Yeah.
interesting thing when you shake people's worldview is that they think about it and that they try to find the grip again
Yeah.
to reality. And that's where you get your message across. Confusing and conquering, from a rational perspective, it's not very, how can I say, when you are the ESG manager of a company or you are in the CSRD or in reporting, it feels silly, it feels stupid, it feels a bit weird to communicate like that.
Yeah.
But if you take the human brain
Yeah.
as center of your perspective, it's actually very clever. We talked about anthropomorphism. There's another technique that I love a lot, and that's I call it the new clothes of the emperor. We all know the fairy tale where this emperor who is very cocky, he loves to show off with his beautiful clothes, and he has a
Yeah.
new tailor, and the new tailor says, I'm going to make the most beautiful clothes you ever had, but he's actually naked, and he's on his parade showing off, and everybody says, oh wow, there goes the emperor in beautiful clothes, and there's one little guy who says, he's just naked. And at that very moment, the entire crowd says, oh my God, the emperor is naked. They were not able to see it till the person really spoil the party.
Yeah.
There are people who do this all over the time. One of them is one of my favorite, my own personal heroes, Rutger Bregman. He goes to Davos and he's there in the panel with the very important people and he says, oh, wait a minute, we have to talk about taxes, taxes, taxes. It's like in the game with firemen and nobody can talk about water. What is this? So he really, that's the new emperor's clothes. He really ontmaskert de situatie, we would say in Dutch. And that's also very disturbing. Now you take people through the reality distortion field from a reality that is fake to a new reality that is real. And he does this all the time. His School for Moral Ambition. It has the same narrative foundation. We all believe the idea and the myth that a better world, it starts within the barriers of our own life, within the scale of our own life. A better world starts in your own kitchen. You have to practice recycling. But he says, wait a minute, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. You don't have a big impact if you do that. That's not how we're going to save the world. A better world starts with your job. We are privileged to be born and raised in the best place of the world, in the best of times, and you can use this privilege to make a difference. People spend between 80,000 or 100,000 hours of work within their lifetime. The most fundamental question that you can ask is, what are you gonna do with it? What's the difference you're going to make with it? And his School of Moral Ambition, it's an organization that helps people reconsider what they are doing with their life, what they are doing with their brains, and to do something better, something more impactful. I love that. But the fundament of it is it's really, how can I say, ontmaskeren? I don't know the word in English. You
Taking the
tackle
mask off.
you tackle the dominant narrative and you replace it by a new one, which is more truthful. And I think this taking people through the reality distortion field, it's fundamental. When I do workshops with clients on storytelling, I always talk very early in the process, I talk about the world of A and the world of B. And the magic of storytelling is taking people from the world of A to the world of B. The static shores of the status quo, the old worldview, their current beliefs, their limited ideas of possibilities when it comes to sustainability to a new world where they've experienced more depth, where their awareness is stretched, where they see new possibilities. That's the magic. And then one of the first questions I ask, what is your world of A? What is your world of B, and what's the core idea of your message, of your story, to get people there? And of course, then we think about hero, villain, the hero journey. What's the scientific proof or the social proof that will help us? What are goosebump moments in your story, and what are persuasion techniques to get through people's defense shields? A lot of storytelling is also about getting through people's defense shields. Yeah. When I talk to you, and when I share a story with you, there might be this moment that you feel, oh my God, Stefaan is trying to convince me of something. And even if you agree, you feel that your defense shield is raising. Yeah. You feel it in your toes. And a lot of storytelling is also about getting through people's defense shields. Yeah.
I think it's, on one hand, it's so important in sustainability to get through the defense shields, because often I think we make people feel attacked, that their worldviews are wrong, that they're not doing enough, that everything is so bad. It's like, it's a lot of blaming, right? Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, if we look at sustainability managers or the startups, they are constantly dealing with, first of all, really bad negative statistics and numbers, right? That gets to them. Then they are dealing with a lot of regulation, communication, and like breaking a lot of barriers to get things done. And now on top of all of that, they have to now start being amazing storytellers that take everybody on adventure. Mm-hmm. I think that's not an easy job to do. Yeah. So how do we make storytelling easier for sustainability professionals and sustainable startups?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. How do we make storytelling easier? What I do, and I'm not going to say that this is the solution, but when I start a process helping people, coaching them on their storytelling, I start with giving them access to a stream of a Pixar movie. And it comes with some questions, with a list of questions. Okay, who's the villain? Who's the hero? What's the core idea? What's the universal theme? The things we talked about. People have to look at the movie, a movie for 12 years old, let's say. Maybe they can look at it with their children and grandchildren, and maybe see how they respond to it and how the movie resonates. But I ask them these questions, and why do I ask these questions? To unlearn marketing. Okay. And to go back to the fundamentals of storytelling, yes, which are present in that kind of movies in a very open way.
This technique that you mentioned with Pixar movies, I think it's a very good idea, because with the whole load, right, of everything, psychological and mental toughness of working in the field with a lot of things that need to be done and juggling, if we take people to a new reality of saying, look at Pixar or Disney movies and see how the storytelling goes, as a professional, it also kind of takes you on an adventure. Mm-hmm. Instead of thinking, oh, I have so many things to do on my plate, I'm just running around. Yeah. It kind of moves you into a new reality where you can play.
Yeah, that's fundamental. Yeah. Because a lot of sustainability professionals, they are, with all respect, they are checklist managers. Yeah. And they are in a number game, and in a game of reporting and having the numbers right. So you have to take them from this reality to another reality with a different set of fundamental laws, because these are numbers and statistics and things have to be right. But in the reality of storytelling, and that's very disturbing what I'm going to say right now, okay, it's not because it's right that it works. I sometimes repeat that 3 times during a lecture. It's not because things are right, that your story is right, that it works. Yeah. That's very disturbing. I see it on people's faces when I say it during a lecture. Huh? But after a while, they get it. And it is true. And one way to help sustainability professionals or startup founders with storytelling is to take them from a loss frame to a gain frame. Mm-hmm. A lot of the stories that we've heard the past 2 decades about climate change in the news or at breakfast tables or in meeting rooms, it's always from a loss frame perspective. This is what we're gonna lose. Yeah, it's even worse. The story is even worse. It's almost biblical, like climate change. It's very big, it's very complex. You're not able to understand as a human being, but it's there. It's gonna happen, and you can't do anything about it. But you're guilty.
Yeah.
That's the narrative.
Yeah.
And the problem with this narrative, it's a loss frame on steroids. That's one thing. But the effects on people when it comes to psychology, it will activate feelings of fear, uncertainty, cynicism, and doubt.
Yeah.
And that paralyzes people. People's brain goes on numb.
Exactly.
While what we have to do with storytelling is migrate the story from a loss frame to a gain frame. What is it that we're going to win in the here and the now? Because a human brain, it's not evolved to be worried about very complex and abstract ideas and threats within 10 or 20 or 30 years. A human brain is evolved to survive and to make the right decisions in the here and the now. A very expensive word for that is hyperbolic discounting. You have to take this very abstract and big threats to the here and the now so we can address them right here. Yeah? So one technique is, what if we stop talking about climate change to inspire entrepreneurs or business leaders, but talk about regenerative agriculture, talk about circular economy, talk about smart grids for our neighborhoods, for our families, and address what benefit it can have in the here and the now for our economy, for our neighborhoods, for our families, for our children and grandchildren, with the things we can do now. Yeah, that's what storytelling should do. Take it through to the here and the now, and to address it in a gain frame. When we look at anti-tobacco campaigns, anti-smoking campaigns from governments, they did the same thing. They had to do the same thing. They had to take the anti-tobacco campaign from the loss frame. These are the terrible diseases that you're going to suffer when you keep on smoking, to a gain frame.
Yeah.
This is what you will win. This is what will happen after you finished your last cigarettes. In 8 hours, this is going to happen in your body. In 24 hours, this is going to happen in your body. In 2 days, you're going to experience that your sense of taste and sense of smell is going to be better. After 2 weeks, it's going to be even more better. After 3 months, this is going to happen in your body. And after a year, when we make pictures of your lungs or so and so and so, we see that this and this and this has improved. So you take the cigarettes or the urge to stop smoking from a loss frame to a gain frame. And we have learned that a gain frame works better. It's even more disturbing. The messages on your packets of cigarettes, they don't motivate people to smoke less, they motivate them to smoke more. And that's because the fear, the fear impulse of this message, it addresses a piece in your brain that is associated with adventure. And what are you doing in the short term? You see the fear factor, and what does your brain say? Just take another cigarette.
You know, I think it's so important that you mentioned it. And sometimes I say we've got sustainability all wrong, exactly because of that. We focus on what we stand to lose. And at some point, I had a colleague who said, well, if everything is so bad and we're just going to lose more, what's the point of doing something? We can go to the beach and have an ice cream while we still can. So, I mean, it doesn't motivate people to act because they think everything is lost. So let's enjoy life while we can because we are powerless. I think it's so important that you mentioned about these lose and gain scenarios. That's why I say that we've got sustainability all wrong, because we are focusing on that doomism and what we stand to lose and how everything is bad. And I had a colleague, and once he said, well, if everything is so bad, and I mean, a good colleague, a good guy, sustainability minded, but he said, if everything is so bad, why would we do something now if all is lost? I would go to a beach and have an ice cream and enjoy it while I still can. And I think that's the image that we give to many, many people, because they feel powerless and they feel like there is a lot to lose. Yet we fail to talk about thriving, better, sustainable futures that we can start indeed having. And it's a very important comment that you raise now, not just 20 years from now, but tomorrow or in 1 week. You know, if we clean that soil in the summer, then the food that you're going to eat coming from that land is going to make you healthier, for example. Or if you move to bio-based construction, the building environment that you're going to breathe in is not the fossil fuel-based insulation with chemicals, but healthy and natural insulation that makes you healthier. And in the meantime, we solve climate change.
Yeah.
But these are direct benefits to the people that are living now and not in 2050. And that's why also actually I named the podcast Better Futures, and that's why I ask every guest the closing question that we'll come to in still a while. We forget to paint the better sustainable future of what we stand to gain once we implement those things.
Yeah, a lot of information to respond. In my workshops on storytelling, I work with a storytelling canvas. I was inspired by the business model canvas.
Yeah.
I think most of people are aware of the business model canvas. It's an overview of 9 pieces of the puzzle, and together you see the business model of an organization. It's very powerful. And I thought, okay, I'm going to spoof it, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to steal it, and I'm going to remix it into a storytelling canvas to create this overview effect of the 9 core elements that define your story. And the hero journey is there, and the villain is there, and the social proof, and the academic proof, and the goosebump moments, and the narrative capital, and the inner world of people. What are the biases? What is the misconception? What is the disinformation, the misinformation that is a living, and what do we have to address? But what drivers and feelings, positive drivers and positive feelings we also have to address in Homo sapiens? One of the elements is a unifying and attractive vision of the future. If you don't have a unifying and attractive vision of the future, for me, is the head cornerstone in every strategy, no matter we talk about the business strategy or a marketing strategy or a storytelling strategy. You need an attractive and unifying vision of the future. When it comes to the ice cream, I would say let's eat ice cream. But when somebody says, well, if the world is a mess, let's just enjoy the very tiny moments we still have left and let's eat ice cream. There is the stress as a result of an uncertain world.
Yeah.
And then there is the driver to indulge yourself. Eating ice cream or do something else. But there is also the stress of an uncertain world, and there is the very human driver of, hey, I want to make a difference. I want to be a hero. Yeah, I want to challenge the beasts. It's very human. It's very universal even, and you can also address this driver. And the good thing is, every narrative is driven by somebody who is facing a challenge, who as a first response ignores the challenge, eats ice cream, and has a second or a third calling, and decides to face the dragon. Maybe because there is no other option to face the dragon and to be confronted with its own fears and to kill the dragon, but on a metaphysical level, creates a personal transformation and shares his new insights as an inspiration with other people. That's the hero journey. That's the Joseph Campbell fundamental structure of a story. And
it's also a very human trait, right? We tend to wait until the last moment, and when it's like, that's the last moment to dig ourselves out of a difficult situation, that's when we wake up with this hero journey and transformations and things like this.
It's true. Yeah. So I think when we say, okay, what if we conquer Mars and we create a living and a thriving planet from Mars? Who's up to join this big challenge? A lot of people are going to say, "Oh, yes, yes, it's very inspiring." Young kids, when they are very young, maybe your own children, they want to be an astronaut, or at least there is this moment that they all want to become an astronaut. So it's very human. So we can tap into this driver and this fundamental human desire with our stories. That's for sure. And I think that's what we should do. And then, of course, it is very natural that it's not going to happen overnight. It will be a big journey that takes time, that takes efforts, that takes collaboration, that takes a constructive mindset. And so on, yeah.
Stefan, I think it's so unique and so important that you work on storytelling in sustainability, because we're definitely lacking it. But what was your personal story? How did you arrive to that? What was the transformation in you that you thought, I need to be doing this?
Huh, that's a good question. I think we have to go to early childhood.
Okay.
As long as I remember, I prefer to spend my time in a fish ponds rather than a football court, let's say. So that's very personal. From very early childhood, I enjoyed nature and the beauty of it, and the fact that it's alive, that there are other life forms, and some fly and some swim. Yeah, that's a source of awe. So I then, when I became an adult or a young adult, I was attracted by advertising. And I know that sounds weird because advertising is to foster capitalism and consumerism. So there is a paradox in this. But I was very fascinated by the toolbox, by the tools and the techniques to make people do things, to make people embrace something. And of course, in advertising, it's about ice cream, it's about holiday resorts, it's about banking, it's about soda drinks and so on. And I didn't like the soda drinks, but I adored and I was obsessed by the tools and the techniques. And it didn't happen overnight, but after a while, I felt I experienced that sustainability needed a better advertising agency. And there was Al Gore with his PowerPoints that won an Oscar. Yeah, and it had its imprint and its impact in sense of awareness, of course, but it didn't move people to a different behavior or to embrace new systems or rethink agriculture, or rethink systems. And I thought, well, we have to sell another worldview. We have to sell another meta-narrative. And the tools and techniques that we use in advertising, we need it to accelerate these worlds. So that's where it happens. And I'm now 48 years old. And over the years, it took different shapes. Like sometimes it were workshops. We talked about green marketing and how it works and what techniques were successful. Then we operated or we practiced trend watching to detect innovation perspectives, for example. We wrote design thinking workshops. So the shape always changed.
Yeah.
But at the foundation, there was always this awareness of, okay, I take people from the world of A to the world of B. I help people to discover a new narrative, because sooner or later, everything is a story. Your childhood is a story. You share your unique childhoods with others by telling stories. Your company is a story. Your startup is a story. So what triggers people or what touches people emotionally when we talk about clients is, okay, what is your legacy? What is the story that you will leave behind? What will your children and grandchildren share as your story? What will your employees share at their Christmas table when telling the story of where they work? And that's very important. Huh? That's very important for people because sooner or later, everything is a story.
I read somewhere a statistic that we remember stories 20 times more than we remember a fact. And what you described as being fascinated with techniques behind, I think it requires a different level of thinking and of mind to even determine that. Because when we look at advertising and marketing, we don't think, oh, they use that instrument to make us hooked, or to make us do certain things. We just take it as a face value and we say, oh, this is cool or this is interesting. But we don't really take a step back to say, okay, was that technique or analyzing what actually motivated us to take this step further. And that's why I'm fascinated by what you shared of your personal story, of that you were fascinated by the techniques behind. And I think sometimes we need that critical mind to evaluate things and not just take them at face value.
Yeah, yeah. A friend of mine, he's also a keynote speaker, but on a worldwide level on energy transition, and talks about the idea of access to renewable energy as a fundamental right, or smart grids, the Internet of Energy. That's his story, and he did a TED talk training in California, and I always remember this anecdote of him. And he said, "Well, there is an old lady who is coaching you for really the TED Talks at Monterey Bay, and she's with her arms crossed, and she said, 'No, I'm not buying it. No, I'm not buying it.'" And it must be very frustrating when you are young and you have the chance to be a TED Talk speaker in California. And I always remember this because I get it. What this lady is doing, she's not thinking in a rational way about what she hears on stage. She is using her entire body as a sensory instrument. Is this touching me on an emotional level? Does it resonate, or is it boring, or does it sound too needy or too brainy? Does it really touch me? And that's something that I consider as very important. When I have students, when I have clients that I coach on storytelling, there are always these moments that they pitch where they are with their work, and you only have one opportunity to hear it for the very first time and to really be present and awake and aware of what is this story doing to me. Is it touching me on an emotional level?
Yeah.
What are the moments that really give me goosebumps? Or is this just a stream of information?
And it's so much stream of information right now, so we have to be even better and catchier with our stories, because whatever we open, Facebook, LinkedIn, websites, it's stories that jump at us. Sometimes they're badly told, sometimes they're told in a good way, but I think it's getting harder and harder, and we need to be more creative with our storytelling, because people are busy, they are bombarded with information, and to catch their attention in this fast-moving world is not an easy task.
No, not true.
I once heard you talking about the element of ethos.
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
Ethos, yeah, it's one of the first elements we address when we help organizations with storytelling. It's who you are. Huh? The answer to the question, who are you? I think it was Aristoteles already in more than 2,000 years ago who came up with the idea that a story needs to be a balance between ethos, logos, and pathos. Logos is the informational value, the facts, let's say, the information. Pathos is the drama, is the emotion that helps you resonate with people and touch them emotionally. But there is also the element of ethos. Who are you? Why are you the best person to be on stage with this story? Is it a fit? Yeah. Is it reliable? Yeah. So this element of ethos is very important. Are you going to be the wise guy? Are you going to be the guy next door? Are you the pioneer? of this entire story. Who are you? And you really have to fit that role, and this role should feel natural and human and real. And maybe that is something that's very important on stage. I remember coaching one of the Vito researchers for the Love Tomorrow conference.
Yeah.
And he was a computer scientist who was into machine learning, artificial intelligence to improve the process of recycling batteries, because in an energy transition we will make use of much more batteries. So it's very important. So it feels very, very niche. But the reason why he resonated with the audience so very well is because he tapped into a universal theme, the theme of being obsessed with the challenge and the desire to really tackle it.
Yeah.
But secondly, he stood there, not as a researcher, but as the teacher, the technology teacher that everybody would like to have in secondary school.
Ooh, good one.
Yeah. So that was really storytelling goals. It was his ethos. And Aristotle already said these three elements should be in balance. And when you are on a stage where entertainment is important and touching people emotionally is important and inspire people important, then this balance will be different than when you're in front of a classroom or when you have a lecture at Antwerp Management School where you have to explain a certain management concepts. The balance will be different, but you should feel the balance as an audience to make it reliable. The importance of who you are. You are not separated from your story. You are part of your story. So if people are practicing storytelling and they go on stage, what to me is still the most natural way of getting a story across, it's being on stage, just like that, talking with your hands and making use of your entire body. Most of the time you see people who are separated by their story. Their story, it's in their PowerPoints and they're explaining everything that is on their slides, and they can even hide behind the curtains if they want to. While I encourage people to be part of their story, to be in front of their slides, and their slides is just pictures in the background that support their story. They are part of it. I think that's a very powerful element to think of.
I'm thinking, I met last year on the Arctic trip an award-winning poet. His name is InQ. He wrote, for example, the song of Selena Gomez, I Love You Like a Love Song. And he has this poem, Poet's Plea to Save Our Planet. And he read that poem to us out loud. And sometimes when we read poems or books, we just read. But when he reads it, he performs it. Like every single word you can feel in him, a difference in intonations, a whole act, how he does it. And then the fact that he has on an audience by performing it is completely different because you immediately feel it.
Yeah.
And then the second thing that you made me think of how important actually the personal is. I'm starting to discover that with Earth Plus as well. And we've elaborated on that with you before, but I really want to bring it on to the podcast, is that we're a bit past the era of just individual businesses. Now the personal side is also really important, of who are the people leading those businesses or working in those businesses, behind those businesses. And I feel like a lot of attention that Earth Plus is getting is due to the fact that I really put a lot of attention as well into building my personal brand and sharing the brand of Earth Plus through my personal brand. What do you see in that space?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I think a lot of organizations suffer with this, or for a lot of organizations it's hard to get it right. My personal feeling is that people resonate with people, and maybe you are a very good example of that. I can imagine that if you post a story online, LinkedIn for example, it has a huge traction. If Earth Plus as the company page of Earth Plus on LinkedIn would post exactly the same message, exactly the same post, then the traction in terms of eyeballs, in terms of likes and so on, is going to be much smaller, maybe 10 times smaller. maybe more. And is that because you are a nice person? The answer is yes, you are a nice person. But another answer, which is true, is you are a person and Earth Plus is a company. People resonate with people and trust people. Yeah? So that's a big difference. And I think Earth Plus is a unique because you kind of sorted it out in a way. And there is this, there is not just Earth Plus, there is this entire armada of organizations. You have c-biotech and c-energy and Earth Plus, and maybe there is much more. And that fascinates me when I come here. It's really, you run it like a storytelling machine. Yeah? You go on stage, you have the headlines, and that's very interesting. Maybe a next step is that that it becomes a bunch of superheroes, and you address the planetary and the ecological importance of cleaning the soil and fresh air and healthy environments and healthy soils and how important it is, because your ethos is there. But there are people in this organization who are different, who walk and talk in a different way, who walk and talk like a champion. Yeah? One of your colleagues, when I hear him talking, it's about millions of acres and it's about tons of materials and blah, blah, blah. And it's more male, it's more masculine.
Yeah.
But also very funny and inspiring and entertaining even. So what makes me curious when I look at Earth Plus and the armada of organizations around it is how can it become a team? How can it become a bunch of superheroes who all have their own unique characteristics and superpowers?
You inspired me actually to look at our partners and them indeed stepping up and taking role in our projects and making them superheroes. So now all my brain is like spinning on how do we put them in the spotlight because of the projects they're doing and their dedication and their courage and bravery to go and do something new. So that's my takeout after today.
Yeah.
A really important one.
Interesting.
Stefaan, Prototyping is your latest book.
Yeah.
And I'll be very honest with you. This is one of the most positive sustainability books that I've read, because usually they are about the state of the climate and indeed how things are going wrong, but not a lot of them focus on the better futures. And when I was reading your book, I was incredibly inspired because, first of all, there are so many wonderful examples of technology solutions, nature-based innovations that are in this book. That give us hope because we know they're out there, but also because it's very practical. There's concrete steps for people or companies to prototype the future and to make it happen.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit for our audience about your book and maybe some practical steps?
Yeah, sure. It all started with the book before this. The name was Pretopia. And the idea, the core idea of Pretopia was, okay, there is this crossroads of dystopia and utopia, but maybe before that there is pretopia. This is this space, this mental space where we can think of different futures. And what are the different boulevards when it comes to food, building, energy, nature conservation, you name it, mobility, and what are the new lighting examples and inspiring examples that maybe feel weird at first place, but that are in fact very clever. What are the significant examples that show us the way? And there was Corona, there was a pandemic, so I had a lot of space and time, and it became a huge book. And it still feels like my most personal book, let's say, Utopia. But then there were the people who said, oh, it was interesting, I've read it, but where is the manual? Because it's very inspiring, and there is this big ideas, book of big ideas, and that you harvested all over the place. They're not my ideas, by the way, I just collected them. But where is the manual? So we can create our own Pretopia. So we can bring it into practice. And I said, oh my God, the people ask for a manual. Let's write the manual. So, and that's where prototyping came in. It started as a practical process with 4 steps, First, you have to envision your attractive and unifying vision for the future, because it's stronger than numbers and statistics, because you're going to need it to inspire people, because that's why people move out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
And very quick in the process, you have to create a coalition of the willing, because you're not going to change the world on your own. You need to create your own force of change with partners and an armada and blah, blah, blah. And as soon in the process, you have to start prototyping, turning your vision of the future into something tangible, something that you can experience. Because when it comes to the future, people don't know what they want until they see it, until they experience it. So we're going to make them see it. We're going to make them experience it. And then you have to celebrate every step forward in the process. What most marketeers do wrong, in my humble opinion, they are educated to communicate perfection. This is the best snack bar. This is the snack bar with the best performance in terms of this or this or that. Or this is the best car, or this is the most convenient, or the best price. Best of the best, earliest of the earliest, newest of the newest. But when it comes to sustainability, there is no ending point, there is no perfection, there is only a process. And we have to communicate steps in the process. What we have to do is, okay, this is a challenge, it's very big, yeah? It's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of expertise, but today we made this step. It's not perfect, but we made a step. And now we're trying to tackle the next step, and everybody is welcome to help us. That's, according to me, the only humble, authentic, and truthful storytelling strategy. Huh?
Yes.
While marketeers are educated to communicate the end results, we have to communicate the process. So that's why celebration is important to me. We have to celebrate every step in the process, even while it's not perfect, even while we make mistakes. That's another mindset.
We often look for the golden bullet, the solution that will solve everything, but that's not what sustainability or climate action is about. It's impossible to just find one solution and turn things around. It's a series of incremental steps, and we can't always get everything right, but if it's 60, 70, 90% better than the version before, we need to go for it and indeed be open in communicating the result.
And to bring it back to the narrative storytelling, or the big narrative that everybody desires to find or to hear or to embrace, I adore the idea of narrative nexus.
Yeah.
And its theory that says our reality is made by stories. Our reality, it's a fabric of stories. So, and that's very encouraging, because if you are an entrepreneur or a startup, let's say, then it's very encouraging that your story is going to be part of a bigger story, of a bigger fabric of stories. So it's not about changing the world, it's about contributing a narrative to this big web of narratives. I think that's very inviting, because if you are obsessed by making better shoes, well, as somebody who makes better shoes, you can contribute to sustainability by just making better shoes.
Yeah.
There is a lot of hope, or with the Dutch word, geruststelling, in that.
Yeah, that's true. So what are the couple of practical steps in the manual that you can unveil?
So where I would start next Monday is getting your people together and create an attractive and unifying vision of the future. I think that's an important key piece of the puzzle. Coalition of the willing, who are the usual but also the unusual suspects within your industry, or even in other industries, to team up with, that really can make this future happen one day, or make steps. Prototyping, taking this far distance vision of the future, bring it into the here and the now by making it physical, turn it into some experience, so people can respond on it and enjoy it, or contribute it, or have an opinion on it, whatever. And then celebrate every step in the process. Tell your marketeers to celebrate every step in the process and not to wait till the end result.
I think it's a great flow and very concrete on the steps that we can take to tackle, these big challenges, turn them into visions and kind of get it done. And the celebration part is also very important because at least I know for us and our team, we always keep raising the bar and we are like not satisfied with what we've achieved because we think it has to be more. We started doing a monthly newsletter for our subscribers on the website. And every time we write the newsletter with what has been done within a month, it actually, I think, maybe even has a more celebration effect on the team than maybe even on our subscribers, because we look back a month and we said, whoa, we actually did a lot, And otherwise, in everyday life, we don't notice those things.
It's true. Somebody told me, I think 4 years ago, and I'm still very grateful about it. Hey, you run where you run, and you always run straight forwards. And he said, Stefaan, every Friday, you have to take your very personal moment to look back and be grateful of the things you did, and be grateful and enjoy. Take time to enjoy the things you did. Yeah. Because if you don't, you're eroding your happiness.
True. And some weeks can be really breakthrough weeks, and other weeks might be a preparation for those breakthroughs, and some other weeks could be frustrating where we're like laying towards the goal, but not everything is going the right way, but we're still laying in that direction. And I think in those weeks it's important to celebrate even that.
It's a privilege, it's an honor to do something professionally that is aligned with your values and where you are driven by the motivation to make a societal impact. That's true. But at the same way, it makes you very vulnerable because it becomes very personal and it becomes very emotional. And that's why looking back every week and be grateful or celebrate the steps you made, it's important for the health of your internal story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially in our challenging space. Stefaan, I have a closing question on this podcast that I ask every guest. Mm-hmm. It's related to the Better Futures name. How do you envision sustainable, regenerative, thriving future? What is it for you?
Okay, interesting. Wow. I think a regenerative future is a future where people create a context, or with what they do, they contribute to a context where society can flourish, where nature can restore, and where people, while doing it, they thrive and they feel happy. Yeah. So you create a context in which things flourish and restore again. That's how I see regeneration. That's what it means to me. Of course, that feels very abstract, so we have to make it physical and tangible and inspire people with worlds that are attractive to live in. That's very important. I think that some elements that already got across in this podcast are very important. That is crossing the thresholds. Take people by the hands and take them from the ordinary here and now to the magic worlds where you have different relations with fungi, with microorganisms, where they are the micro factories of new products and materials and fabrics, and how this is all more healthy.
Beautiful.
Thank you. So crossing this threshold is very important. Story supplying is very important. So you have your pioneers and you welcome them in this podcast, which is very kind and interesting, of course, and inspires your people. But next to the pioneers, you have your early adopters, right? That's your bubble. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we have to move out of our bubble. Yes, of course, we have to, but we also have to address our own bubble and supply them with the story and help them tell the story in the right way. And we have to do this with our early adopters because they have the motivation. You don't have to pay them extra money. They have the motivation to do this and to share this. So how are we going to practice not storytelling, but story supplying? And after the early adopters, you have your early majority, your late majority, your laggards, let's say the big volume of society. Here are the skeptical people. the people who think that sustainability is an elitary thing for progressive people and so on. And I think we have to address them with the 3V structure. Oh, there is another model again. Okay, I promise you it's the last one.
Go, please.
The 3V structure stands for values, villain, and vision.
Okay.
You know, Elena, everybody has an Uncle Freddy in its family. And it's the...
I have a colleague, Freddy.
Okay. I mean not this one, but I mean the guy in your family who thinks a bit right-wing, conservative, and saying, oh my God, sustainability, climate, at the Christmas table. How do you address those people? Because that's society. There is a model for that. It starts with value, the V of value. You have to address common and universal values. Talk about family. Talk about respect.
Okay.
Talk about courage. Yeah, these are universal but also traditional values, and from that values you address the villain. This is what's going wrong in society. This law or absence of laws is the cause of these and these problems. This is what we have to tackle. We have to have the courage to tackle this. Right? And then you talk about vision, and this way we can create a world where these threats are gone, or we can secure this and this and this and that, and we secure this for children and grandchildren. So the 3Vs, it starts with common values as a common ground, name and address the villain, and then share or show or demonstrate that you can create this vision or society or realize this vision of society. And this is how you can also address the majority of people.
Oh, I love it, the Uncle Freddy thought. Yeah.
My Uncle Freddy, he's always present in spirit during my workshops. After a few hours, everybody knows Uncle Freddy. Everybody thinks of Uncle Freddy when you practice storytelling.
But that's another storytelling tool, probably.
It's a tool.
Yeah, which really sticks. Stefaan, thank you so much. I think the work that we're doing is incredibly important and also incredible in itself. I always enjoy seeing you on stage telling stories. It's one of my highlights. But we do need stories. We do need stories to get from world A to world B. And thanks to your work, we can get there through the companies doing work or people, stepping into the change. So thank you very much for doing it.
You're welcome.
I am so grateful. And thank you for being, today.
It was a pleasure to be here.
This podcast is sponsored by Cordell Group, the most innovative builder changing the game for sustainability in construction.